So every child in our country knows this verse. That karmanyavadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachan ma karma phala hetu gurmate sangosva karma. You have a right to do your work, but you have no right to the fruits. Do not consider yourself to be the doer and do not be attached to inaction. So what sticks is that don't aspire for the fruit. And because you say don't aspire for the fruit, people who read the Bhagavad-Geeta, people who study the Bhagavad-Geeta, yes, even those who make a sincere effort to follow and live the Bhagavad-Geeta, they're often confused by the part that says, give up the fruit, but don't be attached to the fruit, or you have no right to the fruit. So we must understand right from the beginning, what is the purpose of work? Then we can go on to what is fruit and what we should do about the fruit. Because if you don't understand what this line means, you will be exploited by so many people who will say, you have no right to the fruit, give it to me. You have no right to the fruit, give it to me. There will be institutions or mats, or there may be temples, or they'll say, just give it to me, because you keep working. Because I have renounced the world, but I haven't renounced your fruit. So please hand over your fruit to me, because you have no right to the fruit. So therefore, it's important to understand what this means. And before we do that, we must understand what is the purpose of work. In the Bhagavad-Geeta, Krishna is very, very, very clear that the purpose of work is to purify the self. The purpose of work is to purify the soul. The purpose of work is to silence the mind. The purpose of work is to transcend the mind. It is to extinguish this false idea of separateness, of I, me, and myself, which keeps you subject to continuous suffering. When you become free from this idea of separateness as a result of purification, and this purification is done through the performance of work as sacrifice. There's a difference between work and work as sacrifice. When you do work, many people say, oh, I am a karma yogi, I do a lot of work. Work binds you. You think you are the doer. You are attached to getting something from that work. And if you don't get it, you are often and frequently miserable. And not only that, your sense of separateness from the universe keeps on increasing. And the consequence of that is that your suffering also keeps increasing. But the Bhagavad-Geeta clearly points out that there is work and there is work as sacrifice. And work done as sacrifice frees you from your material bondage. It frees you from your mortality and takes you to immortality. That work done as sacrifice, indeed, not only frees you from bondage, It frees you from sin, and it helps you to become one with the all-pervading divinity. This is very, very important. The purpose of work is purification. And the Bhagavad-Gita is all about placing work as sacrifice on the supreme platform as the primary means, higher than abandoning work and wearing orange robes and shaving your head. The Bhagavad-Gita specifically points out that work as sacrifice is the means to attain salvation. The Bhagavad has a verse which says, Dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho arthayopakalpate narthasya dharmaikantasya kamolabhaye hismritaha. Your swadharma, your job, your duty, your work is your path to salvation, is the means to salvation. Your work is the instrument of your salvation. It is not meant for earning wealth, not meant for acquiring enjoyable things within this world. And if you do acquire fruit or wealth as a result of doing your work as a sacrifice, you should not let it lead to your degradation. As one works, so the universe responds. There is nothing that you do in the universe which is not subject to the law of reciprocity. You do evil, you will receive evil. You do good, you will receive good. You do your duty and perform your responsibilities, do your work, and there will always be a reward. But that reward is not meant to take you towards forgetfulness of God and overindulgence in the senses and a mad drive for the accumulation of wealth. Instead, you should understand that your work is the means of your salvation. There are 5 types of prayer. One is petition, where you pray to God and ask Him for something. Oh God, will you give me a Mercedes Benz? My friends all drive Porsches. I must make amends. This is called petition. You keep begging God for something for yourself. Then there is what we call as intercession. In intercession, you pray to God and say, hey God, you're sleeping on the job, so I'm shaking you and waking you up with my prayer. Please do something for my spouse, for my child, for my parents. Please do something for this soul who I have nothing to do with, but I am just moved with compassion for the soul. So God, I know that you are not very attentive nowadays. So I have decided to shake you up and wake you up and intercede on behalf of that person to remind you, God, that please do something for this individual who is neglected by you. This is called intercession, where you pray to God for somebody else. The third is called contemplation or meditation. It is when you do nothing but you sit still, and in that stillness wherein you sit, your entire attention focus, your consciousness is intent on God. This is called meditation contemplation, where you do not ask God for anything. Where in petition and intercession, you are asking God for something and talking to God. In meditation and contemplation, you are listening to God. You are listening to God. Just in silence, you're listening to God. But the highest form of prayer, beyond petition, beyond intercession, beyond indeed meditation or contemplation, is adoration. And adoration means you work as sacrifice and offer that work as sacrifice to God. Krishna says in the Bhagavad-Geeta, Yagnartharth karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samacharaha. All work done as sacrifice offered to God frees you from sin, frees you from karma. All other work that you do in the world in forgetfulness of God and done for yourself or for anyone else, where you benefit directly or indirectly. This work binds you to this world, binds you to Prakriti, binds you to karma, binds you to suffering. So, yagnartharth karmano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara. By working in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, one attains the Supreme. Krishna also clearly mentions that if you perform your duties, God-given duties, in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to that all-pervading Lord, one attains salvation, peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. Yataha pravrittir bhutanam yena sarvam idam tatam swakarmana abhyarchaya siddhim vindati manavaha. And each person, by performing his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion to the all-pervading Lord, attains peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. So it doesn't matter who you are, what you are, whether you are a prince or whether you are a pauper, whether you are a king or whether you are his lowliest subject. As far as God is concerned, he sees the soul and all souls are equal. And thus, he accepts whatever work you're doing as sacrifice, whatever work he has given you as your duty. When you perform it as a sacrifice unto him, he gives you salvation. Work is the means for your purification, and it leads to salvation. Therefore, Krishna says very clearly, Brahmanya adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha lipyate na sa papena padma patram ivambasi. All the work you perform is an offering to God, the all-pervading Lord. Brahmanya adhaya karmani sangam tyaktva karoti yaha, which you perform without any attachment as a sacrifice. Lipyate na sa papena padma patram ivambasi. No sin sticks to you, no karma sticks to you. You are untouched by that work. You are not bound to the world by the performance of that work. Indeed, you are released from this material bondage as a result of performing this work, which is the prayer known as adoration. Therefore, Krishna says, even yogis work, even seekers work, even those who sincerely seek God, they engage in work for what? For their purification. Kayena manasa buddhaya kevaler indriyerapi yogina karma kurvanti sangam tyaktva atma shuddhaye. Kayena with the body, manasa with the mind, buddhaya with the intelligence, kevaler indriyerapi with all your senses, working senses like the arms and legs and tongue. Even yogis work, yogina karma kurvanti, without attachment, sangam tyaktva, atma shuddhe, for the purification of the self. So that work which one does as an offering to God, it purifies you. It leads to your salvation. Therefore, Krishna respects the person who works for his salvation as being on a higher platform than one who has abandoned the world in search of him. Anashritah karma phalam karya karma karoti yah sa sannyasi cha yogi cha na nirajnir na chakri. In 6.1, Krishna says that one who performs his God-given duties in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion without taking shelter of the fruits of his labor, he is the true yogi, he is the true sannyasi, not one who lights no fire and does no work. So the purpose of work is to purify the self. Your work is an instrument for your salvation. And incidentally, if you acquire wealth or any other benefits through your work, you do not use it to forget God and degrade self. So the question arises, what do we mean by not being attached to the fruits of your labor? Many people think that being not attached to the fruits of your labor is not collecting your salary, not bothering about whether you're paid or you're not paid. But abandoning the fruits of your labor simply means that you will do your work without your mind being on the fruit. There are many types of fruit that we get from our work. One is, of course, the most gross is the physical. You get paid money for it. And that money which you get paid for it can be translated into enjoyment and pleasure of your senses, expansion of your comfort for your senses, increase, that will come later, but basically wealth is used essentially at the physical level just to enjoy and expand your enjoyment. On the next level, you work because you enjoy working. Because the place of work is a fun place. Because it is a fun place, you enjoy working there. The nature of your work is also fun. So this is fruit for your mind. Because mind wants to have fun. So if your place of work enables you to have fun, enables you to socialize, it enables you to have a wonderful time, then of course you're getting fruit to the level of the mind. The third level is at the level of the intellect. You work because you get fruit for the intellect. You work because For your buddhi, you are learning. You are expanding your intelligence. You are expressing your creativity. You are becoming more creative, more learned, more of an authority in the subject. So this is an opportunity to learn. So the third level of the fruit, beyond physical, which is money, emotional or mental, which is enjoyment, intellectual, which is about buddhi, which is about learning. You want to learn, that's why you're working. Maybe you're not getting paid much, but you know that you're learning and that learning can't be taken away from you. Money can be taken away from you, but your learning can never be taken away. You're working because it gives you prestige and name and fame. Because indeed, by performing that work, you're not getting paid, maybe you're not learning anything, you're not enjoying it. But they give you big titles. And eventually you become district governor of that NGO. You become a leader in that organization. So with various labels and stickers and titles, your ego is enhanced and thus you feel aggrandized that this is wonderful. So that is food or fruit for your ego. So at one level you get money, at another level you get enjoyment, at a third level you get learning, at yet another level you get ego enhancement. All these are fruit in one way or another. But when you are able to work irrespective of what you are going to get, of course you will get money most of the time. Who will not pay you for your work? If nothing else, people will recognize your work and they will give you another job where you get paid. But you're not working for money. You're working for your salvation. Dharmasya hi apavargasya nartho arthayopakalpate. You're working for your salvation, not for acquiring wealth. Sometimes work is enjoyable, sometimes work is not enjoyable. Sometimes you get your salary on time, sometimes because of hard times, your salary may come late. Or your business environment changes and the work that you're doing in your business doesn't give you the fruit or the money that you're expecting. But you continue to do your work because it's true, bad times come, but eventually good times will return. And ultimately, you are not working for money, you're working for performance of your duty as a sacrifice offered unto God. That whatever you're doing, Krishna says, offer it to God with the words Om Tat Sat. Lord, this is for you, this is not meant for me. Idam Krishnaya idam namama. Lord, this is meant for you, this is not meant for me. Brahma Arpanam, Brahma Havir, Brahma Gnau, Brahmana Uttam. Brahma evatena gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhina. I am made of spirit, this universe is made of spirit. And my work is spiritual because God is manifesting through this Prakriti to perform this work. And thus it is spirit which is offered into spirit. Sometimes you get acknowledged for the work that you've done. Sometimes you get respect and honor for the work that you've done. Sometimes people give a damn for you. They consider you a fool for the work that you've done. They don't give you respect. Even a simple acknowledgement they don't give. But you're not working for the ego either. You're not working for the money, although you will get it. You're not working for the enjoyment, although you will get enjoyment. You're not working for learning, although you will definitely learn from what you're doing. You're not doing it for respect and honor and reward in the terms of titles, etc. But that will also come if it's in your prarabdha. Raga dvesha vimuktestu vishayan indriyascharan atmavashyer vidayatma prasadam adi gacchati. So you continue to work without any likes or without any dislikes. Whether the things come on time or they don't come on time or they don't come. Some people say, but what if the work is not going to be successful? Even then, the work you're performing is for your salvation, not for success. In the Bhagawad-Geeta, Krishna says, Siddhya asiddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. Just imagine what Krishna is saying. He is saying that whether what you're doing will be successful or unsuccessful, it doesn't matter. Your mind will remain equanimous, and you will remain in perfect equanimity. You will remain with your mind completely still, without jumping with joy or sinking with sorrow. Whether your work is successful or unsuccessful, you will continue to work. Siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva samatvam yoga uchyate. This equanimity of mind, this silence of the mind, Krishna says, is called yoga. Is called yoga. Samatvam yoga uchyate. Equanimity of mind is the essence of yoga. So you work in a spirit of devotion and renunciation, offering everything to God, without having any sense of doership, without being moved by receipt, non-receipt, by delay, timeliness of your remuneration. Whether you are enjoying work all the time or not enjoying work part of the time or none of the time. Whether you are learning or you are not learning, you will continue to work. Whether you are being acknowledged and honored or not, you will continue to work, because that work is the means for your salvation. This means you have to be, as Krishna points out, the Sthita Prajna, the sage of steady wisdom. And how does a sage of steady wisdom respond to the fruits or the enjoyments of the world? Apuryamanam achalo pratishtam samudram apaha pravishanti yadvat tadvat pravishanti sarve na shantim apnoti na kamakami. Look at the ocean. When there is rain, when there is monsoon, the rivers in flood rush into it. The ocean is full, but it never refuses this, the rivers that flow into it. And when there is drought, when there is no rain, when the rivers are dried up, and there is no water to flow into the ocean does not become less. The ocean is always full. So your work trains you to be like the ocean. You don't refuse the fruits that come to you. You don't refuse the money that comes to you, the enjoyment that comes to you. You don't refuse the learning that you get from your work, and you don't refuse the honor or respect that comes to you through the performance of your duty. But that is not your objective. That is not the purpose of your work. And whether this is there or it is not there, like the ocean, you are always full, you are always complete, you are always equanimous. And thus you attain that state of being a sage of steady wisdom. Dukheshu anudvignamana sukheshu vigataspriya vitaraga bhaya krodha sitadimani uchate. Indeed, Krishna points out, you reach that stage where you are not disturbed when people think there is cause for sorrow in your life. You are not excited when people feel there is cause for exultation and excitement in your life. In fact, you are free from attachment, fear, and anger. Such is the stage of steady wisdom. Jitatmana prashantasya paramatma samahita sitoshana sukhadukheshu tathamanapanayo. For one who has conquered his mind, for him God is already reached. For him heat, cold, joy, sorrow, honor, dishonor, they're all the same. And when you perform your work without seeking the fruit, without thinking yourself to be the doer, being constantly occupied and engaged, what happens? You reach the state. You reach the state where you become imperturbable, where you are completely unaffected by the world. You keep on doing your duty in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion. You accept everything that comes to you, just like the ocean, even though it is full, it keeps accepting the rivers that flow into it. But when the rivers dry up, the ocean is not less full. So you give up the fruit not externally. You give up the fruit by being internally free of attachment. Asakta buddhir sarvatra jitatma vigata spriha naishkarmyam paramam siddhim sanyasen adi gacchati. You move around in the world, do your job, do your duty, but your mind is unattached to the fruit. It's unattached to everything. And thus, you are one who is constantly in a mental state of renunciation. Yat karosi, yad ashnasi, yat juhosi dadasi, yat tapasyasi, kaunteya tat purushama darpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, whatever you give away, whatever charities, whatever austerities you perform, everything you do for the Lord. And then what happens? Shubha Shubha Falairevam Mokshase Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuktena Vimukto Mami Vaishyasi. When you work in that spirit, which is known as Sannyas Yoga, you united with God and renounce, you mentally renounce the world. You attain peace, perfection, and eventually return back to Godhead. So do not be confused. This detachment from the fruit is an internal detachment from the fruit. Because you're internally detached from the fruit, you can accept the fruit with equanimity. And when that fruit is denied to you, that also is accepted with equanimity, because you understand that not a blade of grass moves without God's consent. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, it is said, Tena vina tranam apina chalati, not a blade of grass bends without your consent. If it bends on left side, it is God's consent. If it bends on right side, that is also God's consent. So you accept the fruit, which is the natural course of events by the law of reciprocity in the universe. And in the event it doesn't come, that's also fine, because you're working for the sake of attaining Brahmabhut. Brahmabhut prasannatmana sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. You are working so that you attain that state of spiritual oneness with the all-pervading Lord when you get parabhakti or supreme devotion to the Supreme Lord. So, giving up the fruit is a mental thing. But if it physically does not manifest, your mental renunciation will protect you. If your work is successful or unsuccessful, siddhya siddhyo samo bhutva, samatvam yoga uchyate. Of course, you will find success in all undertakings. And the last verse in the Bhagavad-Geeta stresses that you will be successful if Krishna is by your side. Krishna, in fact, promises it. Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matpara buddhi yoga mupashrita machitta satatam bhava machitta sarva durgani mat prasada tarishyasi atho chetvam ahankarin ashroshasi vidanshasi. Always think of me, be mentally united with me, surrender unto me. And by my grace, you will cross over all obstacles. But if you think you are doing it, then everything is finished. So God himself will help you to cross over all obstacles in your life. If you are surrendered unto him, if you act in this spirit of devotion and renunciation. But your attachment should not be to the fruit, not at the level of physical, emotional or mental, intellectual, ego, or even for success. You must have that perfect stillness of mind, that samatvam yoga uchyate, that equanimity of mind which is the essence of yoga. Remain always full. Welcome any fruits that come. But if they don't come, you are also still perfectly situated. With this, I'll pause here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me any questions.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Yeah, so first question is, so it seems quite difficult to sacrifice for a lot of people as they have a sense of insecurity and they are unable to see the bigger picture. So how one can surrender to God in that case?
So, Manushyanam sahasreshu kasyid yatati siddhe. Yatatam api siddhanam kasyin mam veti tatvata. Out of many thousands of people, hardly one will seek perfection. And of those who seek perfection, hardly one will know me. So, of course, this path is not meant for everybody. Most people go through the world in suffering, right? There are a few people who are sensitive to suffering, specifically extra sensitive to suffering, and who have a high enough intelligence to understand there must be a way out of this suffering. Such people come to listen to the message of the Bhagavad-Geeta. And then, enlightened by the message of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad-Geeta, following and living the words of the Bhagavad-Geeta, they attain perfection. So it's difficult, Of course, it's difficult. Out of many thousands of people, hardly one will even want to seek perfection. There are millions of people in the universe. How many people are listening to Bhagavad? Right? So it's like that. It's not meant for everyone.
Absolutely, sir. So, sir,
So,
how renouncing the fruits of your labor is different from moving in life without any goal? Because a lot of people sometimes misunderstand this.
no, there's no question of giving up your salary or giving up your fees or giving up your business profits. I'm not asking anyone to do that. I'm saying you have the right mental attitude towards them. So when they come, you welcome them like the ocean welcomes the rivers. And when they don't come, the ocean remains full. So also you have to be complete in yourself. You have to be remembering God in forgetfulness of self. You have to be a sthita prajna. You have to be a gunatita. You have to be a supreme bhakta. You have to be a yogi. You have to be a jnani. All of these you have to be. But Krishna says in the 12.12, Shreyo hi jnanam abhyasaj, jnanad dhyanam vishishyate, dhyanad sarva karma phala tyagas, tyagad shantir anantaram. That better than performing ritual is spiritual knowledge. Better than knowledge is meditation. And better than meditation is to work in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion, in a spirit of renunciation, because through renunciation one gets everlasting peace.
Absolutely, sir. So, sir, what is the role of patience in renouncing the fruits of labor? As now we are living in a world where we want everything instantly.
So, in this world, many people foolishly think, first let me become patient, first let me become honest, first let me become this, let me acquire this quality, that quality, this virtue, that virtue, and I will build up all these virtues, and then when I build up all these virtues, then I will take the spirituality. I beg to differ. If you take up this path, God will purify you. God will give you patience. God will give you all the virtues that anyone can ever seek. It doesn't matter who you are. Api chedasi papebhyo sarvebhyo papakritamaha sarvam jnana plavaineva vrijinam santirishis. Even if you are the greatest sinner among sinners, even if you are a Nobel Prize winner among sinners, even then, Krishna says, on this boat of knowledge which I give you, you will cross over this ocean of sin and suffering. Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak sadhur eva sa mantavya samyak vyavasito hi saha. Shipram bhavati dharmatma shashvat shantim nigacchati kaunteya pratijanahi name bhaktya pranashyati. He also says that, even if you are the most abominable person who's performed all kinds of abominable acts before, do what I'm telling you, and what will happen? He promises that you will become a dharmatma. And he says, declare it boldly, my devotee never perishes. So don't have to create that I have first become patient, then I will become this, then I will become that. Don't need to do anything. Just remember God and forget self. Live the message of the Bhagavad-Geeta. Offer every action to God in a spirit of sacrifice and devotion. When you are not working, chant God's name. I recommend 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And I assure you, I guarantee you, you will see significant changes in your life. In 15 days, you will make more spiritual advancement than you ever made before in the rest of your life. You got to experience it to believe it.
It comes along with it. I mean, patience.
Everything comes along. All the good qualities lie within you.
Absolutely so. So, sir, these were our
Yasyati
questions.
bhagavati bhakti kinchana sarvair gunes tatra samasita sura. When the devotee, all the good qualities of the gods begin to manifest.
Sure, sir. So, sir, these were our questions for today, and thank you so much for the amazing session. And sir, we will see you next week.
Okay, Hari
Jai
Om,
Shri
Jai Shri
Krishna, sir.
Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna.